My name's Jackie Smith. I'm the project manager for the Smart Accelerator project, which is run by the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation, or ECCI, because that's a lot easier to say. ECCI is part of the University of Edinburgh. We were set up as a physical hub to try and bring together organisations, individuals and people to try and foster a low carbon economy in Scotland. So, as you can see up there, we have a beautiful building in High School Yards in Edinburgh. It's got one of the highest BREEAM efficiency ratings, but we use it for hosting low carbon conferences, events. We also have 30 MSc students based in the building, and we have a range of companies and SMEs. Now, ECCI has three main strands to the work that it does. So one of our main strands is to act as a policy interface, because we want to try and get governments, not just Scottish Government, we work internationally, to try and think differently about how they can promote sustainability and low carbon. So recently, for example, we've been working with the Galapagos Islands. I know you would all think that would be wonderful, because that's where Darwin made all these discoveries, but actually they use one of the smaller islands next door to dump all their rubbish. So they need a bit of advice and guidance. We also provide policy advice to companies as well as to governments and industry. We also do skills and learning, but we tend, with our skills and learning, sorry, we're not in competition, honest. We run a range of skills development courses for small, medium-sized enterprises, because quite often now with the local government procurement framework contracts, you've got to be able to prove your sustainability and your low carbon credentials, and a lot of our SMEs don't know how to do that, so we work with them to help them with that. We also promote other skills and development, and we obviously try and build our carbon masters programs so that we have professional qualifications to match with it. And then finally, we try to foster enterprise and innovation. And we do that a couple of different ways. We have in the building what's called the Low Carbon Ideas Lab. And what we do is we run a competition for start-up companies to come with great new ideas that they want to promote. We provide them with free desk space. We give them mentoring, advice and guidance, and we help them basically get their businesses off the ground. For the more established SMEs, we have the DHL Innovation Suite. And here we have a range of companies. We have everything from an angel investor at the moment to the Climate 2020 group are there. RBS have desk space there. And what we do there is we bring people together who want to foster low carbon ideas and innovations. We also work with the City of Edinburgh Council, and we do a project called Interspace. Because I don't know about you, but wherever you work in a local authority, you find there's lots of different organisations trying to help businesses get up and running. So we work with all of them to make sure that we're not duplicating and that we're actually all heading in the same direction. And we also have advisory support and guidance. We have 3 business managers who work really closely. One works on water and waste, one works on smart mobility and transportation, what we were talking about earlier, and another one looks at energy ideas for renewables, and they will spend a lot of time with SMEs trying to help them find funding and trying to guide them in the right directions. And then finally you've got me. I'm in the bottom bit. Oh, I've jumped. We also attract European funding and other project funding to run projects. So my project is the Smart Accelerator project. That is an 18-month project which was funded by all the lovely people on the bottom there. So I have everything from Scottish Enterprise to Highlands and Islands Enterprise to Transport Scotland to European funding. So it's great fun trying to get them all together in a meeting room, you can imagine. We were set up to try and find what we thought was originally going to be 12 projects and help them to get started. So basically kick them, get them accelerated, because there was a lot of projects out there that had ran out of steam or didn't have the resources or didn't know where to turn. So we were looking for projects which could create smarter cities. We heard a lot about that this morning. Also look at sustainable islands and rural communities, because that's really important in Scotland. So we went out to try and find 12 projects which would be low carbon, but also would try and cross between mobility, smart ICT and smart energy. So we thought that'll be quite easy. So in February last year, we put out a call and we discovered that we actually ended up with 282 applications, which was a bit of a shock. So out of the 282 applications, we put them through a filter of evaluation. And what we discovered was there was a lot of projects that were actually duplicate projects, but they didn't know about each other. So one, for example, was working up in Aberdeen. Another one was doing the same thing in Dundee, but they didn't know. We also found a lot of projects which actually were very similar, but if you joined them together, you would get the kind of scale and economy that you were looking for. So we spent a lot of time actually shaping the projects, and in the end, we ended up with 17, which again wasn't what we were expecting, but that's fine. We currently have 14 projects, and I'm sorry about the scary diagram. I don't know if anybody at the back can see it, but these are the 15 projects that actually we ended up working with. Now, all the projects on the bottom of the diagram are all smart mobility projects. So if I take the middle one, Orkney Electric Futures, and sorry, I don't want to steal Stephen's thunder, because he's going to talk about that one a little bit, but it's using stranded renewables in Orkney and seeing if we can put a whole scale of electric vehicles to use that energy. We've got Dundee, the Mill project, and again, David Beaton from Urban Foresights mentioned, Dundee has the largest electric taxi fleet in pretty much the whole of the UK, plus they're redeveloping a lot of their infrastructure at the moment. So what they want to do is they want to be a smart mobility city that is able to try lots of different transport modes and lots of different ways of doing things. We also have what's called the Green Transport Hub. And again, we heard in the topics just before us that the take-up of electric vehicles is rising slowly. We have LPG vehicles and hydrogen is coming along. But what's happening is you have to be quite a savvy consumer if you decide you want to purchase that kind of vehicle. A lot of the manufacturers and dealerships actually aren't that keen on selling you them because they're difficult to sell. So what we thought is we're going to explore, can we set up a physical hub, like a demonstrator centre, when you have all the different types of new renewable vehicles, you get people there, you get them trying them out, you show them the cost efficiency, and you start to talk to businesses as well. Our local authorities and our public sector are switching their fleets, but our actual SMEs aren't, so we need to work with them to persuade them to do that. So as you can see, they're all about vehicles and transportation. We've then got mobility scheduling, which again was talked about today, where you actually look at how you use your fleets of vehicles. Do you go on the most efficient route possible? But more than that, if you then switch to electric vehicles, for example, what would the cost savings be? Glasgow, you met this morning, and they were talking about LED street lighting. Our project with Glasgow takes their street lighting to another level. What you find is with street lighting, you have your columns, so your furniture, you put your LED in the top, but you've still got the columns. What else could you use them for? So what they're doing at the moment for us is examining, could you, for example, put electric vehicle charging points in the columns because they're already plugged into the grid? Can you do anything else smart and efficient with them? That leads me neatly on to Shawfair. Shawfair is a brand new town which has been built on the outskirts of Edinburgh. There will be 4,000 new houses, a new railway station, a hospital, and lots of schools. That all sounds wonderful. Planning at the moment only requires them to look at the actual construction of the properties themselves, so make sure they're energy efficient. But the actual developer wants to see if they can put a district heating scheme in before the houses are actually built. That sounds pretty much common sense, doesn't it? But what he also wants to do is see if they can exploit the resources round about them. So for example, there are colliery mine workings underneath Shawfair. can they use the water as a geothermal water source? And also they're building a brand new waste treatment plant next door, which will generate electricity, but hadn't thought about what it would do with the heat. So could we take the heat and run it through the district heating setup? So they're looking all at that just now. Then if we go right up to the top, you'll see T Eco Valley. This is Perth and Kinross. They have just announced today, actually, it was on the press this morning, they are building an agricultural business park, and they also have housing quite close by and a school quite close by. They would like to put a heat pump in the Tay River, which runs alongside, and use that as the actual heat source to generate for the business park and the housing. So they're looking at the feasibility of that just now. Then if we go right to the top, we've got Stornoway. So Stornoway has the same problems as Orkney. It can produce far more electricity than it can actually use, but Stornoway on the Western Isles is too long for electric vehicles. I know that sounds strange, but there's one major road which loops right round the island, and it means that you'd never get all the way round in an EV. What you could do, however, is you could take the excess electricity and turn it into hydrogen. And with the hydrogen, you could run hydrogen vehicles, or you could actually use it as a heat source, because it's quite difficult on the islands to put district heating in just by the nature of the communities. So that's what they're looking at. And then in the middle, I have what's called sustainable harbours. Scotland has lots of harbours, especially on the west coast. Most of them are actually public sector owned by CMAL. And again, they are investing a lot of money in the infrastructure of the harbours at the moment. And suddenly they've thought, well, could we make the harbours more renewable? So what we're doing is we're developing a blueprint for small harbours to say, could you use marine, wave, tidal, could you possibly use wind? And then once we've got the blueprint, every time they go to refurbish another harbour, we've got the blueprint that says, for your type of harbour, you should be putting these energy sources in. So it all starts tying together. Then on the far top corner, I've got my community energy schemes. And I was really interested in the conversation about Manchester this morning, because Manchester is talking about setting up, basically being energy self-sufficient. Well, Linlithgow is a small town in between Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's a medieval town. They would like to be energy efficient too, and they want to set up what's called the Linlithgow Natural Grid. So basically, you buy shares in the Linlithgow Natural Grid company, and you get an energy dividend. So you get cheaper energy prices, and once they start generating their own, which is the plan, you start to get cheaper and cheaper renewables. So actually, in the end, Linlithgow could be energy independent. Then I've got Falkirk Wheel, which is Scottish Canals. It is a very iconic visitor centre. It gets about 500,000 visitors a year. The actual wheel itself takes canal boats from the lower canal, picks them up the top and puts them out at the top. It actually runs on gravity, so it's very energy efficient. Brand new visitor centre next door, wasn't built as energy efficient. So what they'd like to do now is refurbish it and actually look at, can they demonstrate new technologies for low carbon resources, but also can they engage the community in how they fund it. And my final one, before I exhaust you all, is Aberdeen. Aberdeen, if you're from Scotland, is a very windy city, quite cold. What they've been doing there is taking thermal images of 6,000 properties, and it's a mixture of residential and commercial. Now, heat images isn't anything new in Scotland. Heat mapping's been done quite a lot before, but what this does is it takes it down to an individual level. So it basically has the heat map per household and says to them, you're losing heat through your windows, your roof, your insulation. Actually, if you go to the website, there's a grant available to help you with that. There's energy efficiency advice here. It starts signposting in a different way. And the idea will be we'll go back after 6 months and take another set of images to see the before and the after. So that's all my lovely projects. Quite a lot going on in there. What we've been doing is we've been giving them a mixture of support. So some of them have grant funding, some of them have marketing and communication support, but all of them have had Scottish-based academic support. So we've gone out and looked to see, has anybody done any research in this area? If they have, fantastic. Give it to the project so that they understand what's out there. We've also looked at, are there any Scottish-based SMEs who could help? Some of our projects are SME projects and some are local authorities, but we've started to match them up together. And finally, we've been out and looked at what else is out there in the world, because we're pretty good at not realising the lessons learned from other people. So we're actually looking at similar projects and telling them the things that worked well and the things that didn't work well. So it's all about improving our projects as much as we can. We finish our reports in March, so after March we should have the results. And I'm really, really, really hoping that most of them are ready for funding to be implemented. Thank you very much for my quick romp.